Ready. Play.
We basically have as an 8-0 head-to-head now for Yannick. It was probably the most predictable result of the ATP Finals. So tell me, was there anything special about today in terms of their rivalry, in terms of their match?
Yeah, I kind of agree. It kind of went par for the course. I guess maybe the one thing you could say going into this match and throughout the entirety of the match was that there was almost no chance that de Minaur, for me, was going to win it. Where maybe in the past there's been kind of de Minaur's maybe flirted with the idea of winning games or breaking Sinner frequently, but today, oh my God, Jesus. I mean, he did get the break, but Sinner's serve was just amazing. It has been amazing the whole season. He's just been growing in confidence. It just felt like he was puffing out his chest so much, there was just no chance. It just felt like Sinner was always going to win this one for me.
Yeah, I mean, there was that early break in the first set, but that was not consolidated. And just in general, I think this matchup has been one of the most depressing ones on tour in the past couple of years because, it just feels whatever Alex is going to do, it doesn't really matter. He just doesn't have enough quality on the ball to, attack through Sinner. He doesn't have, his defense has never really held up against an attacker of this class. Since their first match, really. I mean, even the Next Gen Finals in 2019, that was brutal. I think he took a set in, Sofia in 2020 maybe, so that was his chance to get a win. But the last few matches, of course, last year Davis Cup finals, that was especially brutal. That was just like a total beatdown in a huge match after all, and in the final of the Davis Cup. And of course, then you also get to Rotterdam, and that was actually a pretty close match at the beginning of the season. But that's how we are looking at this. If Alex is able to put in two very close sets, that's already good. That's already a solid result from him in this rivalry. And he was actually peeking out of his mind there for patches. He just wasn't able to pull it off. I don't think today was quite as good from his perspective. Today was maybe more like the median level that he can produce. And yeah, it's just not good enough. It's just not good enough for someone who's this effective, who's this high percentage. Dave says that maybe Alex is not right physically either. I mean, given the state of this group, I guess losing 0-2 to Sinner is not that bad because you can actually assume that probably all three of them are going to have that. So, it's not the end of the world. Definitely not. And of course, now Alex will play Medvedev, right?
Yeah. Exactly. I was just saying, everybody's fighting for the scraps, and de Minaur against Medvedev. You'd back de Minaur against Medvedev potentially after the appearance against Fritz. You imagine Medvedev's maybe a little bit scrambled. I mean, maybe the only asterisk that I would make is that probably de Minaur would prefer to play Medi on a bit of a slower court so that the serve doesn't kind of come into play. I guess we could maybe make that asterisk in terms of their games. But honestly, if you just look on paper, I'm going to back de Minaur. I think Medvedev, when he gets like this and he really gets under his own skin, he plays some of the worst tennis he can play, and that's what I'm expecting. I mean, I don't think he's going to come out completely refreshed. He looked like his whole season had been bothering him. I'm sure it probably was a bit of that. And yeah, it's a shame to see the oldest guy in the group, shaming himself out there like he did. He can do better than that for sure.
Yeah, I mean 6-3 for Medvedev in that rivalry, but that definitely we still consider other very defensively oriented players to be problem matchups for him. Then Alex has pushed him in the past many times. So yeah, I think it's obviously a chance for him. Daniel is looking like he wants his season to be over. Jake also mentioning that he doesn't think that Alex is right physically. I mean, when he came back in Antwerp, he definitely was pushing for it just to make Turin, right? By now, it's actually a pretty long stretch of matches. In a battle right now between Medvedev and the Minaur, it's actually a question who's fitter, and the right answer might be neither. So basically, that's what we're gonna see on Tuesday. And of course, the winners will also face each other in Sinner Fritz, which to me is the most interesting match of this group, really.
Yeah, and even then, like the US Open final, I mean, I remember. I'm sure you feel the same way, or maybe you don't, because maybe it's a little quicker. I don't know. Maybe Fritz can hang into service games just a little bit better. But I remember saying there, still from the back, there's not really much that Sinner's going to feel off put by. Fritz is hitting the ball pretty well though, so do you know what? You never know. I think the performance against Medvedev was pretty polished, despite the fact Medvedev was a bit all over the place. I feel like when Taylor got chances to attack, he took them, and that's been a kind of staple for this season. I definitely feel like he's getting a little bit less loose and kind of knows a bit better when to go for it and when not to go for it. And I think it could be a good match against Sinner. I agree, but I still think Sinner gets the win. I think at least it will be entertaining and probably has the potential to be the most entertaining of all the matches.
Yeah, I think I was talking about depressing rivalries, and this isn't yet a depressing rivalry, but the U.S. Open final certainly belonged in that category, and like everyone knew that it was going to be like this. Everyone knew that was not going to be a match, and it was just how that event went, really, with only one favorite after Alcaraz and Medvedev bombed out. Of course, Medvedev actually to Sinner, but anyway, that's not the most important thing right now. I think yes, quicker court indoors, it just makes it more likely that it's going to be a bit of a serving contest, and that's the only reason why I believe in Taylor. I believe in Taylor not in the sense that I think he'll win, but he can keep it close. 2022, of course, he did very well, and his only ATP Finals appearance to date, also in Turin. And I do have high hopes. I don't know if today's match gives me that. Probably not. Probably it started well before the event. But at least that could be a Sinner match that I will be like excited about watching. Today, Sinner the Minaur, you pretty much know what's going to happen before you actually open up the match. And that's where we are with this rivalry. I actually saw a very, coming back to this match for a second, I saw an interesting Twitter exchange between Mike James and Mert Ertunga. I think Mert has featured on the channel before. I don't know if Mike James has, but maybe, I don't know. But anyway, they were just talking about the Minaur, and Mert was suggesting that like Alex is not even like even though he's one of the quickest players on tour, he's never actually thinking of like taking these balls on the rise or whatever. And Mike said that like he's taking everything on the rise. He's actually further inside the court than Yannick is. And I guess probably the truth lies somewhere in the middle of this. But it just kind of made me think, there's been a few times definitely when Alex was going to try to, was like trying in this rivalry to take the ball earlier, go to the net, attack Sinner a bit, but he just doesn't have that much on his shots, even on a court like this.
I'd probably side with whoever's argument is the latter. I think that de Minaur does take everything on the rise, and that's the staple of his game. He absorbs pace, and he takes time away from the opponents. From positions where maybe other players don't. But there's a difference between maybe your position being a little bit dropped back and then using a kind of step in to really add pace to the ball. But I don't think de Minaur is the best at doing that. There's different ways you can take the ball early and different ways you can take time away from your opponent. But I don't think de Minaur is necessarily the biggest pace adder. So I think it's more about being offensive in that way, maybe injecting a little bit every so often, as opposed to, court position, which I think de Minaur does really well. I don't think he has to change that. I don't think he does have to hug the baseline any more than he does. He basically camps there for every matchup he plays. So yeah, I don't know if you'd agree with that, Damon, but that's certainly.
Oh, definitely. No, I think this is something that he has actually like improved on in his career. This is like a way of maybe just making sure that some of his limitations don't hit him as hard as they could. I think one of the people in this argument, I don't even remember who it was at this point, but like one of them was also making the case that like he's hitting his shots 10 miles per hour less slower than Yannick. But that's also because of the court position. Like you're not gonna be hitting it that fast when you're on the baseline, when you're taking it on the rise. It just doesn't work like this, obviously. So I definitely agree with that. I think Alex has done very well in like maximizing his potential, getting his maybe not yet maximizing, but like just maximizing that the ability that he has into a game plan that work for him consistently. He just hasn't found one that will work for him consistently against the very top yet. But I mean, we already knew that going into the event. At least he has good head-to-heads against Medvedev and Fritz. So there is definitely still things to like look forward to from his perspective. I think Novak is probably the record, right? I mean, Ferrer was 17-0, I think.
Was it 17? Yeah, I suppose it was. What about
Nadal,
Gasquet?
Gasquet, but we have a challenger match where Nadal retired.
It doesn't count.
Yeah.
It's an ATP head-to-head because what a
No,
month
because he
not that
retired in that match, I'm fine with like, well, mentioning it, but not really caring about it. If it was an actual match that they played, through and through, then I
yeah.
would be like hardcore screaming that Gasquet actually has a win over Nadal.
Mm.
And I think that's also what Gasquet probably was doing, kinda. And I mean, it's very important to mention here that Gael Monfils also has a win over Novak Djokovic in an ITF event in 2004, and that actually was a completed match. So from my perspective, I would say Ferrer is probably the biggest. But yeah, around that, yeah, 18-0, 17-0. I think that's pretty much where we are.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.